Well, my name is Lisa Brown, and I am a professional animal communicator. I'm also an evidential medium, which would mean that I deliver the messages from your pets and loved ones in spirit for healing and peace. And I'm a certified Ayurvedic practitioner, which is the traditional medicine of India, and also an energy healing enthusiast and practitioner as well. And why did I name this The Art and Science of Animal Communication? Well, I would imagine that there are a few of you who might still be on the fence or a little bit skeptical about animal communication, even as a valid practice or, I guess, legitimate. So I wanted to sort of intrigue you with some sciencey thought in there and the art of it, because it is like an art form. We all come to it with a different skill set, a different level of or different gifts that we naturally use in our practices. And it's also something that can be developed just as you would an art or a craft over time. Things get better and better. So that's the good news. And I also really want to assure you that all of you here today can talk to animals. There isn't anything special about me, except that maybe I've put in a whole lot of time and dedication and tenacity to develop my craft and my gifts that I was born with, and so were you. You look at children and they still have it, but we get it rather conditioned and squeezed out of us. So having said that, how do I know that everybody has it? Because I went through most of my adult life not knowing that I had it. And I do recall that as a child, I was in commune with my animals, my beloved animals. And over time, I developed allergies to animals. For many years, I didn't have a pet. And so I completely forgot about that ability that I had as a child. But it was rekindled when 30 years later, I brought in a rescue cat and did not know what to do with her. And she had been indoor, outdoor. And what do I do with her? So someone suggested that I take her to an animal communicator. And I kind of thought that was a little wacky. But not only was it a little wacky, I wasn't supposed to bring my cat to the animal communicator. I was supposed to bring a photograph of her. Well, that was the beginning of a very magical, mystical journey that changed my life, because my cat told this woman that I had the ability to talk to animals myself, and she was going to be my teacher. And she also proceeded to rat me out about all kinds of things that this woman couldn't have known. So I was blown away and decided to take her class. So that was my introduction to animal communication. And it was a journey up until my girl died in March. But I was so intrigued from the get-go that I started to take classes from various people and ultimately ended up in a certification program with Amelia Kincaid of the Language of Miracles Institute, which speaks volumes in the title there. So what is animal communication? Animal communication is the language of telepathy. Woo. The language of telepathy. And what is telepathy? So telepathy is the transference of information between two subjects that is non-physical, not using your physical senses. It is still using the five senses, but not in a physical manner. And it can be thoughts, it can be feelings, it can be emotions, and it's often perceived, if you will, with the mind's eye, with the pineal gland, excuse me, or if you do Reiki and that kind of energetic practice, with the sixth chakra, which would be right here. And it uses the senses sight, sound, feeling, knowing, tasting, and smelling. So I'm going to give you an example of, actually, I'm going to hold the example. But I want to tell you what animal communication is not, because that's important too. So animal communication is not animal behaviorism. It is not animal training. It's not the studying of a particular breed and hanging out with them, observing their behavior and their tendencies of a species. Although it's helpful there, but that is not animal communication. And it's also not trying to control or manipulate the animals. We don't do it to get them to do what we want. We might get that as an end result. And actually, oftentimes when an animal feels heard, or they realize that you're actually making an attempt to speak their language, they'll feel more willing to do what we would ask of them. And sometimes it's like a person. When you feel like your story or your feelings have been heard, you relax a little bit and you're more open to getting dog training, to have your behavior analyzed, to work with the humans who might otherwise be upsetting you. So it's not all of those things, and it's not a method of control or manipulation. So I think that's really important to express. So having said that, what is the science behind animal communication? Well, the science behind communication, and I'm starting with science because I want anybody who's kind of like, yeah, I don't know about this, to put their foot in with a left side of their brain for a few minutes. We can go there. The science of animal communication is, well, first of all, then I'm not actually trying to convince anybody of anything. And I'll just say that the proof is in the dog bowl. Okay, so we're going to throw that in there. The science of it is going to, we're going to be talking about quantum physics. Quantum physics, I am not a scientist, so I'm not going to pretend that I'm a physicist or trained in science in any manner. What I am is extraordinarily intrigued and curious about the ideas of quantum physics. And they were first introduced to me by my mentor, Amelia Kincaid. And if you want a good read that drills down a little bit, that's highly entertaining around this interpretation of animal communication with physics, go to her book, The Language of Miracles. And her mentor, which is quite significant, was Dr. Edgar Mitchell. And Dr. Edgar Mitchell was an astronaut on Apollo 14. He was a NASA-trained astronaut. He was also an aerospace engineer who studied at Carnegie Mellon. And in terms of science and aerospace and the universe, that's about as good as it gets. And that was her mentor who introduced to her a few ideas, but he also went on to found the Institute of Noetic Science, which is, noetic science is the study of knowing and thinking, which also includes the paranormal. So I have to go to quantum physics then. And if you understand that all of matter is about 99% insubstantial, it's not really made up of anything solid. It is the electrons, protons, and neurons all vibrating and doing their little dances in a physical form, but we are not actually physical matter. And our animals are not actually physical matter either. So if you would go to a couple theories in quantum physics, Albert Einstein is my favorite dude to quote because he would talk about energy. And at the time of his passing, he was working on something called the unified field theory, which was the idea that all of life and all of matter and everything exists in a united field. He was trying to unite his field of relativity with the idea of electromagnetism, and that everything is in concert with everything else all the time on an energetic basis and impacting two subjects are always impacting each other. Another theory that's important in this realm of quantum physics with animal communication is the idea of the wave particle theory. And it kind of was blowing everybody's mind that the subatomic matter could be both particles and waves, which means what? It travels. The other theory that you can look up and delve further into if you would wish to is the zero-point energy field. So really what I'm talking about here are the fields that interact with each other, and they're all unified, and the ability to receive information from another subject or another field is always available to us in this vast field. So I'm not going to make this a science class, but I'm bringing these ideas in because when we talk about some of the skills or the artistry of it, you can go back to this understanding that we live in an energetic universe. And I love the analogy that here I am sitting in my dining room, and if I have a question or a desire to tune into information, a broadcast, music, whatever it is all around me right now in this vast space around me. I can't see it, I can't hear it, I don't know it, but if I dial into it using my device of some sort, like a radio, a TV, a smartphone, all of a sudden I have access to this incredible field of information that I wasn't aware of a few minutes ago. Now imagine if animal communication is the communicator, which would be me, identifying the frequency or the broadcast of my subject. And according to physics, it's highly possible that that can travel on the wave, electron waves. I can receive it. I'm the device. I have to learn how to interpret it is the art. So I'm going to leave you with all of that to think about, and you can investigate as you wish. Read the book if you are so inclined. She's a wonderful, amazing animal psychic. And so then we want to go on to what is the art of animal communication. And this is my favorite part because I was an art major, I was a dance minor, and I studied languages, and this feels really natural to me. And I also want you all to recognize within yourself that your way of practicing or going about animal communication or perceiving is not going to be like anybody else's, because we're all artists and we're all going to be unique in this field. And I've really had to learn not to compare myself to other animal communicators, because we're all going to be our own device in a unique way, our own receivers. So that's really important if you have an interest in this. I do want to emphasize that studying with people who have experience is really valuable, because you can have your own gifts sort of brought up and made more clear to you. So like playing the piano, you know, some of us are going to be playing chopsticks and hammering for the rest of our life, like me, or a few of you might be concert pianists or prodigies, or, you know, really take this on and delve into it. And that is, you know, like an art form, you have to develop it, and you have a natural innate ability, but everybody can talk to animals. So what are the gifts that we're developing as artists? Well, here's where I would begin to talk about the non-physical senses. And I'm sure that a lot of you have heard of the terminology clairvoyance, clairaudient, clairsentient, claircognizant, clairgustient, clairalient. So what am I saying here? The term clair is French for clear, which would mean clairvoyance, clear seeing, clairaudience, clear hearing, claircognizant, clear knowing, clairsentient, clear feeling, clairgustient, clear tasting, clairalience, clear smelling. And it's also an art of intuition. And here's the science art aspect of it again. Animal communication happens on the right side of the brain. And the right side of the brain is the side of your brain that's responsible for intuition, creativity, inspiration, non-logical thinking, if you will. And so here you get it. So that's the right side of the brain. The left side of the brain is logical, rational, problem-solving, analytical. Now, here's the key. If you are jumping into the practice or the experimenting with animal communication, you have to turn your left brain off. I'm here to tell you. Because if you're, number one, thinking too hard, I can't think the thoughts of the animal if I'm thinking my thoughts. They can't coexist at the same time. I also can't receive their impressions if I already have an idea about what I think I know. If you knew how many things the animals have taught me, I was like, whoa, what just happened? I never even thought of that. And that's what can happen when you're not thinking your thoughts. You're open to receiving from these beautiful other beings. How do you know also when you've connected with an animal? If they make you laugh or surprise you or shock you before you've even had a chance to think about it, you know you're connected to the animal. That's part of the fun of it, the artistry of it. So in animal communication, we're developing these other senses, which are, and I would like to share that I actually feel I do my best work with animals when I'm not in their presence. I like to work from photographs. And I will have a client send me a photograph of the animal with their eyes facing the camera and one of their body, so I can see their whole body. But I'm using the photo to connect with their radio station, if you will. I'm looking for their unique frequency because we're all vibing at our own unique frequency. And if you train yourself or learn to surrender to receiving energetic information, you will begin to recognize, you know how you get around with somebody and you're like, oh, I don't like their vibe, or we don't resonate. That's energetic and it's very real. So with animal communication, you can access the energetic frequency of an animal through a photograph because you're using it as a focal point. And I like the body picture of the animal, not to study so I can see what's wrong with them, but to say in my mind when I connect with theirs, show me where it hurts, or what's going on at your tail end, or, you know, I'm asking questions and having an interactive communication with them. But I use the photographs as anchor points. So the non-physical reception is all that I have to work with. And it has encouraged me to develop that ability more and more and more. And some teachers and some, I'm going to just for a second use the word psychic. It's not my favorite when I'm teaching because it can put people off. But some of my favorite psychic teachers and pet psychics would share that it actually takes about 5 years to fully open and unfold each of those non-physical senses. You can maybe work on one for a while where you're seeing and receiving pictures. So in those specific clairs, if you will, I will go a little bit more into each one so you can understand how you would be using them with animal communication. And I'm going to teach you at the end how to connect with an animal so you can leave here beginning to experiment and practice and have fun with it. Because remember, we're on the right side, and the right side is about creativity and inspiration and easygoing. You got to be easygoing. So I'm going to leave you with the tool. So we'll get there. But I want to go into each of the clairs for a few minutes. Clairvoyance, clear seeing. So clear seeing is, if you would imagine almost like like you're in your imagination, really, actually. In the clairvoyance, you're receiving film clips, you're receiving pictures, You're receiving mini movies, perhaps. But I do want to emphasize that animal communication doesn't come in a logical linear stream. You're not going to tune in with the animal and see a complete movie. Not going to happen. It's a very subtle communication form that you have to be present to. So clairvoyance, clear seeing, I will receive imagery or little film clips. And I'm going to talk about clairaudience for a second as well, and then I'm going to give you an example of a situation that made me laugh. So clairaudience would be actually hearing in your mind's ear the voice of the animal talking to you. Now, through this energetic transference of information, I'm the radio, and it's going to be interpreted in different ways for everybody. Sometimes I will actually get to hear an accent from an animal or a style of speaking. You know, I had a cat when I was first starting out tell me in sort of an Italian mafioso accent that he was a hunka burnin' love. And I started laughing my head off. And then I went, oh my gosh, I'm not that funny. This is the cat. Sure enough, he thought he was. But you're hearing things in your mind's ear, which, you know, you have to also begin to build trust and confidence that you're not a little crazy, because you could feel that way, right? So with the clear hearing and the clear vision, I'll give you an example of a session of a dog that happened a few years ago, but is still one of my favorites. So Sadie lived in Denver, a little Chihuahua mix, and her people were no problem for a long time, but all of a sudden, Sadie did not want to go for walks. And they had tried working with the animal behaviorist, and nothing was changing. She just was having a sit-down strike all of a sudden about going for walks. Used to love them. And they're at their wits' end. They don't know what to do. And they contacted me and sent a photograph. I live in Wisconsin. She lived in Denver. And I sat down with Sadie and got quiet. You know, important for me to empty my mind. So I'm meditating. I'm clearing my thoughts out, preparing a space for Sadie to communicate and send her frequency and information. And I tune in, and I always start with, hey girl, what do you want to talk about? What's going on here? The other dogs don't have to wear coats. What? The other dogs don't have to wear coats. And then I close my eyes, and in my mind's eye, which would be the clairvoyance, I see imagery of Sadie in a little Red Riding Hood coat, bright red. And I'm taught to write everything down. Don't censor it. Don't even think about it. Just write it down. And I'm laughing like a little chuckle inside. And I'm thinking, a little Red Riding coat? Really? And so when I get to talking with her person, I said, you know, does Sadie have to wear coats when she goes for a walk? And her person said, oh my gosh, she's so cute. I just ordered her a whole bunch of new outfits. She's got a little red cape. She's got a jacket. I love red. It looks so good on her. I said, really? I said, well, Sadie's not having it. Sadie doesn't feel that way. And not only that, Sadie said the other dogs made fun of her, and it made her feel different. And, you know, you can't make this stuff up. I'm really not that funny. And then the humorous aspect that made the person laugh was I said, and by the way, Sadie said that if she has to wear these ridiculous coats, your husband has to wear something ridiculous as well. Like they can go on a ridiculous walk together. But the interesting proof in the dog bowl is that when she stopped, she said, well, I guess I won't put him on her. We'll see what happens. When she stopped dressing her in these very cute outfits, Sadie was willing to go for a walk again. And you can't make that up, right? So things like this over time have shown me that not only are animals funny, they're very perceptive, they have opinions, and like us, you know, they have feelings. And I think it's important that we think outside of our what we want and how we think for our animals. and honor their wishes. So there's an example of how the clairs worked for me. And just another example, actually two examples again, because I think this will be helpful to you about how these clairs work with the practice of animal communication. I was working with a woman who was very skeptical. And, I could be really intimidated by that. And sometimes I am. But when I get connected to the animals and I know I'm connected, it takes away my fear because they're truth tellers and they want to talk to us. And I kind of, asked this animal, this dog, would you please tell me something that I can tell your person that will help her believe that this is real? Because when they buy in, or when a client actually gets enough evidence, and I start with things that they can understand before I deliver messages, then, they relax a little bit and are receptive. This dog, I'm connected with her. Actually, excuse me, it was a he. And I'm in my office and I had a cat, actually my cat sitting next to me, and connecting. I'm sending my love, my energy, finding the frequency. And all of a sudden my office started to smell like vinegar. I mean, vinegar, not just subtly, but vinegar. And I was like, oh my God, what's going on? I smell vinegar. And I looked at my cat and I said, have you been in the vinegar? I'm like, whoa. And all of a sudden the light bulb went off and I went, oh my gosh, this is one of my senses being activated because this is important. And I wrote it down. And when I got on the phone with the woman to discuss the issues that were going on with her dog, the first thing I said was, look, I don't know how to explain this, but I just want to ask you about it. I said, your dog is sending me, wants to talk about vinegar, not really liking this vinegar smell because I wasn't liking it. And there was a big, long silence. And she said, well, about half an hour ago, I poured a big bowl of vinegar and put my dog's collar in it because it's been out rolling in the poop and the dirt. And that's the only way I can get the smell out that's natural. And there was another pause. And I said, yeah, well, your dog doesn't like that too much. I said, just wanted to let you know that that's the first thing they wanted to talk about. And so through my own clear smelling, I was able to begin a communication with this dog that her person was more open and receptive to. But I'm not special. I've intentioned to be given information with the animals and develop it in a way where I can receive their what they need to talk about in a way that my physical device can receive. And it does really depend on letting go of preconceived ideas, letting go of what I know. I will also share that in the art of animal communication, I don't front load my brain going into a session. I don't want to know a whole lot about the animal because it gets in the way. I only want to know the name, the age, where they're at probably, like how far do I have to send out my antenna, and their sex. And if they've passed, I like to know how long they've passed and not even necessarily the circumstances because they will tell me. And to that point, I'm going to throw in another Albert Einstein quote, which is, you can't kill energy. Life is not the beginning and death is not the end. So if you understand, I'm communicating on an energetic level, a frequency, a vibration, a broadcast, and that energy is never going to die. I can access it wherever it is, past, present, and future. So that's, wrap your head around that. It's quite fascinating. So I use those senses to work in my animal communication sessions. And interestingly enough, I have found that most men that are in my classes are very comfortable with claircognizance, which is the clear knowing, and not as comfortable with some of the visual clairs. And I'm not trying to be, gender biased or anything like that, but it is kind of a fascination. So clear knowing is all of a sudden knowing something or getting a gut sense about something that you have no reason to know the answer to. And I use that in my animal communication. If I get a feeling about something or a hit or something that I feel like is informational, I really don't censor it. I write everything down. And over time, enough validation has taught me to trust, to allow it to feel like imagination sometimes. And that is really important. And to keep that left side of the brain out. Here's where I use my left side of the brain. And here's where a little bit about how, I've taken this from being a receptive form of communication to actually learning and being a little bit more knowledge and science-based. The animals will oftentimes share with me something I don't know anything about. And then I will go to my computer right away and be like, oh my gosh, parsley and dogs or something. But I'm not studying about this on the front side because I don't want my brain involved. I want to be a pure receptor of what they need to talk about, how they need to express it. Very, very important. And science, I want to see, this is, okay, here we are, technical skills. I'm going to try to inject a slide here I want you to look at because it's my favorite Albert Einstein quotes that you can do a screenshot if you want. Here goes, let's see if I can do it. But Albert Einstein, the science in support of animal communication, imagination is more important than knowledge. Knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world. I believe in intuitions and inspirations. I sometimes feel that I am right. I do not know that I am. An energy cannot be created or destroyed. It can only be changed from one form to another. Am I back? I hope so. So I love that Albert Einstein, being the physicist and the scientist that he was also open to the idea that the imagination is absolutely, if not more important than the logic and the knowledge. So, okay, so we've got a basic, I hope, a basic understanding of these aspects of animal communication that we would develop, become aware of, and use in our connections with animals to receive their information and process it through our own hardwiring. So what is animal communication good for? What kind of things can we use it for? So I have a little list here, and I'm going to look at it because I didn't memorize the whole list. So one of the most fascinating aspects is rescue history. I did some experimenting when I was first learning animal communication because I wanted to find out if it was possible and if I could develop it. And what rescue history means that I'm going to connect with the animal and have them tell me or show me or share with me in a physical sensation what happened before they arrived at the shelter, what happened before they were found on the street. And this, blows your mind that you can actually receive this information. And I have now probably could write a book on stories of histories of animals that helped beyond trainers or behaviorists not able to solve certain problems because they were missing some key points of this animal's history. And I love it when, the people can validate, sometimes they can't, or sometimes it's validated later. But so animal rescue is a way to help them to understand their past, their traumas. It's also used for behavioral issues. Sometimes animals are doing things for very non-logical reasons, like people. And if we're used to studying them and saying, well, this behavior makes this, or if we do this, it changes that. I'm here to say I don't think animals are that logical sometimes. We can force them, manipulate them, talk them into something, or punish them for not doing what we want, or teach them a lot of manners, which is great because they need manners. But sometimes the behavior is quirky. It just doesn't have a reason that reason understands. And the animals can talk to you about that. Household dynamics. Dog lovers, if you have cats, I'm going to say that cats, I don't know if I can use the word a-hole, but I'm going to use the word a-hole. Some cats can be real you-know-whats, And the dogs have to listen to them and get criticized and barraged because cats sometimes also think they rule the house. And a lot of behavior in the household is because there's a whole lot of smack talk going on between our dogs and our cats. And that's kind of entertaining in itself, but sometimes it has to be put to a stop, and we have to inform our cats that they need to talk nicer to our dogs. Physical concerns. You can use animal communication, and this happens frequently in my practice, where veterinarians are unable to diagnose or determine something. Now, I have to tread very lightly, and so must you. Anything physically related is subject to liability, and you must stay in your scope of practice and knowledge. So we are not allowed to diagnose or prescribe anything unless we have a license to do so. But what I do is I will share it in a non-clinical terminology, and I'll also share things that I feel and ask them to check it out with a vet or check it out with a chiropractor. I'm feeling like this animal's body is needs help here, or they're telling me this, or even wherever it comes from, because again, I'm in the unified field where I have access, if I tune into it, to all kinds of information that can be kind of downloaded to me through the animal and otherwise that I would want to get checked out on the backside. And that's how that can work. But we have to be very careful with physical concerns. And then changing, if we're changing our routines, the household's changing, life changes, divorces, new babies, all these things affect our animals. We want to get their opinion, give them a heads up. If they have a new vet, if we've got a new sitter, a walker, a groomer, get their opinion. Do they like it? Who do they like better? What do they need? Lost animals. Now, this is really an art form to be developed, and I have done some of it. It's very, very taxing, I believe, and time consuming because animals are on the move and you have to be following them in what we would call remote viewing, which is a whole nother topic, but very possible if you train your mind's eye to do it. Finding lost animals. Going on vacation, talking to your animal about it, the lay of the land. Does your animal need a new job? Our animals need to have a job. They need to wake up every day and have a sense of purpose in the world just like we do. And sometimes animals have the wrong job for them. Sometimes they want a new job. Sometimes they don't understand their role in the pack. The hierarchy needs to be adjusted. The rules need to be set out differently and the expectations. But you want to get your animal's opinion about it, And a dog who's not an alpha dog and tries to be an alpha dog sometimes creates a lot of problems. So that is possible to determine with animal communication. Now, going on to a more spiritual level, you can, with your animals, understand, if you will, that every soul has a journey, and animals have souls as well. And sometimes we're here on a soul journey with our animals, and they're here to teach us something. We're here to teach them something. We're working together on a soul purpose or mission. And the only, really, it's heightened or made more possible by that animal-person relationship. We let go of our resistance with our animals sometimes, and our animals, for that reason, are extraordinary teachers and healers. And then the other aspect of animal communication is life lessons. And our animals bring them for us. And I know that a life lesson and a soul contract with my previous feline was for her to get me going in this direction. And your animals see you more clearly than you see yourself. They're looking at you into your soul, believe it or not. They already see you. You've heard that saying, be the person your dog or your cat thinks you are. They see you, and that's why they love you. They're looking and loving you on a soul level, and we can learn a lot from them. So these are some possibilities of animal communication in your practice. It can be a supplementary, even if you're doing if you're a vet or you're a Reiki person or you're a behaviorist, animal communication is something that can only enhance what you're doing. And it's also just something, if you have no intention of using it in any sort of practical, business way, just to understand your own animals better and to start to observe the world in this sort of magical, truly magical realm of interspecies communication. And yes, we can talk to wild animals and animals all over the globe. Is possible. All right, so now we've gone through all of this, and we want to talk about how do we make the connection? How do we? What's the methodology, if you will? So first of all, I want to really encourage everybody, if you don't already have some sort of mindfulness or meditation practice, to begin to cultivate it, even if it's 5 minutes a day. And why am I saying that? Because if you'll remember, I was sharing that we cannot receive their information and their thoughts and their feelings and their physical sensations if we're feeling our own. If I'm thinking my thoughts, if I'm feeling sad or grief-stricken or anxious, or I'm feeling sick to my stomach, I can't receive what they're telling me because I'm so caught up in my own bubble, my own vibe. So surrendering and creating a quiet, mindful place within you is very, very important. And I think you'll notice even that once you begin to do this, if you're in your home, your animals are going to come and meditate with you. They love it. They love the stillness of that non-turbulent mind. My animals in my house, well, at least one of them, the other one, not so much, but one of them, every time I sit down to meditate and clear my mind, she's right there with me. I open my eyes and she's right there. And again, I would imagine her to be a teacher for me as well. Who knows what she's downloading and helping me with, right? So we're going to talk about the method and the technique of connecting with your animals. So again, we want to become very quiet and grounding ourselves and taking 5 minutes or so to find that place. And then checking in again with your own body, what's hurting. So, animals, because we're having an energetic transfer of information here, sometimes they're going to show you in your own body what's hurting them. I very often get pain in my jaw or pain in my teeth when an animal needs to have its teeth cleaned or checked. And I have a couple physical issues of my own that I deal with, but I know what they are. And the other thing is I don't get headaches. So when I get a headache when I'm connected to an animal, I know it's either this animal or the person that they live with, because that also happens. So I'm clearing my energy and grounding myself. The most important thing to know about animal communication, it's the language of love and the vibration of love. And you know how it feels when you're in the presence of somebody that you love and you know somebody loves you. You can relax, you can share, you can be yourself. It's a beautiful gift to give another being is just pure love. So we want to connect to an animal, be it in your environment, in your room, or through a photograph, wherever they are. You want to send them your heart, your love. And you can do that by thinking of a person, an animal that you love beyond measure. And you want to send that vibe to them and introduce yourself. Find them. We're looking, we're feeling, we're letting them be receptive to our beautiful energy first. And I've also been taught, and sometimes this makes me laugh, to flatter the animals a little bit. And you can feel a little bit goofy sitting with a photograph of a dog going, "Oh my gosh, you're so handsome. You're the best dog I've ever seen. I love your ears. Oh, your fur. Oh my gosh, I bet people are really, really drawn to your behind," So you're connecting with this energy because remember, particle wave theory, unified field, this is possible. We're doing it. And then, they might be smiling or saying, "Oh, I don't want to talk to you. My person didn't give me permission to talk to you." So we always want to ask permission of every domesticated animal that we talk to. They are in the guardianship of another being, and they are our secrets. There are information about the person that the animal may wish to share with you, excuse me, that the animal may wish to share. And you want to have permission from the person for the animal to share. And also, let them know that you're free to share anything that you need to. And that's very key, because I've had animals I was attempting to talk to that hadn't been given permission. And, particularly some of these German shepherds that are very guardian, police dogs, they're not telling their secrets and they need permission. So we always ask permission of domesticated animals. The animals in the wild, different story. You can talk to them. And you also would want to, in some species, talk to what I consider the oversoul of the species. Find out who's in charge, who's your leader. Let's talk to them for everybody. That sounds a little bit, that's the whole next chapter on animal communication, but we want to get permission. So we are quieting our mind, getting in our heart, sending love, the vibration of pure love, no expectation. I'm here to receive whatever you need to share. I'm not here for your person, I'm here for you. I work for the animals. And while I have to maintain my, my civility, my honor, my respect for their people, and that's key and important, I'm really working for the animals. Because why should they talk to me if they're going to get in trouble or they're going to be punished? I have to really respect them. So then once I have connected and I found their frequency and we're vibing in love, I can begin to ask questions. But we're not going to go at this like, hey, why does your foot hurt? Now, you don't do that to people. So we have to have a sense of respect and a sense of honor for another being's boundaries and their integrity and all of the same things we would wish for our interactions with humans. So I like to start with things that feel good, like who's your favorite other person? Who's your favorite other animal? Or what's your favorite food? Or tell me a joke. What do you love? What makes you laugh? What kind of music do you like to listen to? And then the most important thing, you're having your pen and your paper, or you're speaking. If you're in a live place, you're talking as you receive. You're not censoring anything. So here's where you get to feel a little ridiculous, scared, worried about being wrong, all of those things. And that's why sometimes it takes a long time to really become fluent in animal communication, because our ego and our inner critic gets in the way. They're not welcome in an animal communication session. And I struggle with this still. Self-doubt, fear of saying something ridiculous. But I'm getting braver and braver as time goes. And I'll say some crazy things that turn out to be validated. So we're starting with more upliftment to get engaged, to get to know the animal. Tell me a little bit about your personality. Share some things with me. We're all going to receive it differently. We're all going to receive it differently. If you're a visual person, they might show you a picture of going for a walk with their person. If you're a feeling person, you might get a sense of loving how it feels to have your tail stroked. If you're an audio person, you might actually hear the animal say, oh my gosh, I wish you'd put that computer down and pet me or spend more time with me. You'll actually hear it. However you receive it is right. It's your way. And there's no better way than how you were designed as a human to receive information. And then you can go on and develop what you maybe don't do so well. I've been working a lot with smelling and tasting. And it's really interesting when you get into receiving tasting, because you're like, ooh, my mouth tastes like baking soda. What's going on here? Oh yeah, they're putting baking soda in my litter box or in my, blankets or whatever, and that's a valuable tool. So how are we doing this? We are asking questions with emotion so they can feel it, with clear imagery so they can see it, we're not speaking it with our mouth because it doesn't matter. Our animals are not actually listening to our voice. They're listening to your pictures and your thoughts in your mind. They're telepathic beings. And while your mouth can be expletive or it can emphasize, it's not really what they're listening to. That's why they already know you're going to go for a walk before you've even, grabbed the leash, because they already know you're thinking about it. You can experiment with that. And animals know time. They see color. Their awareness is far beyond maybe even what science would tell you. And I have to say that I personally have enough proof that I don't need to, have that debate. I know it. Okay, we're back to the process here. When I started out, I made for myself a very long list of interview questions for each species. One for dogs, because they have specific questions you would ask a dog that you wouldn't ask a cat, that you wouldn't ask a horse. And I have a file of all these questions for each species. And I would practice with them and work with them. I've gotten to the place now where I don't use the questionnaire because I'm more trusting of just getting in there and saying, what do you want to talk about? Where are we going with this? What's important? And if you would imagine that maybe the animal only once in their whole life has 20 minutes to speak their mind, they're not going to talk about ridiculous stuff that doesn't mean anything. They're going to go for what they need to talk about. So I just let them do that now. I'm like, but I'm polite at the beginning, and I'm not going to say, how do you feel about having surgery on that mass that's growing on your body? We're not going to do that. We'll get there eventually if it feels appropriate. So we've made this connection. We're asking questions. We've got our pad and paper, our pen, and we are just writing down almost like we're making it up. We might think we're making every single little thing up. And we might be, but I'm here to say we probably are not. And that is the language of animals, telepathic language. You might find you're more comfortable doing it in person, but I would only ask you to be careful that you're not looking at the animals, studying them, trying to, figure it out and problem solve. I like to turn away from an animal when I'm working with them in person and actually take my eyes off them, or maybe close my eyes and plug my ears, because they'll be sending me what I need to receive, but I'm not distracted by a thumping tail or the sound of them barking or whatever, sniffing around the room, because that's not really, they can be wagging their tail and be happy, but in general not be happy. Dogs are really in present time, but overall you want to find out what's going on, what's trending. So that is the method. And then when you're finished with the communication, you always want to say thank you. Thank you for sharing. And it's really important that you have a little conversation with the person who is the guardian of this animal or this dog, and say, look, they've shared with you, and my wish is that you'll honor some of what they ask for, because it's like somebody promising you something or saying that if you share, you'll change something, and then you pull the Lucy rug out from underneath them and nothing happens. We're building trust here, and that's a huge part of all of this. In animal communication, trusting yourself to receive the messages, trusting the animal to share what they need to share, and trusting the person that they're going to listen and be open to what's communicated. So I also, and I think I said this before, but I'm going to say it again. I go into a session, I'm not front loading all up here with all kinds of information. If I know a dog has arthritis, I'm not going online to research arthritic remedies. I'm not going online to find out which breeds suffer from arthritis. I never do that. I will go and look something up after the fact of what I've been given from the animal. Because sometimes I have to, because I don't have the knowledge, but I'm not doing it on the front side. I don't want anything getting in the way of direct, pure receptivity to the heart and soul and voice of the animal. That's really important. So those of you that are really comfortable in that front loading position or that left side of the brain, you have to let go for a bit and surrender and say, I can bring this back in, but it's not the place for it. right now. And if you ever notice that sometimes you get answers in life when you're washing the dishes and your mind is just traveling around and you're, all of a sudden the answer will come, or, you're out for a walk, or, doing something mindless, the answers will come. So that's a really good analogy for animal communication. So let's see if I left anything out. We only have a few minutes left, and I could ask, I don't know if Sandra's here with us. I brought a picture of a dog, so if we had time, we could use our Q&A time to play with it, or I can just, tease you with the idea that an exercise we would do in class, and I do love to teach, and I'm just finishing up my virtual online teaching sessions, virtual learning. We would practice with an animal through photographs and do some fun exercises. And the first one would be, making up the story about the animal, and let's make up a story. And the second one would be attempting animal communication with this animal and seeing which of the two scenarios is more accurate. Because I find sometimes when I go, I'm just going to make this up, that I am right on, because it just comes flowing into my device, my brain. All right, so I guess we're at the 43 mark of the hour. I don't know how we're taking questions exactly, or if there's comments, or I'm going to share this photo of Marley, okay? I'm going to share this photo real quick. I don't know that we have time. And before we finish, I also want to mention that on my expo booth, I think we have a booth here, is email address. You can contact me through that expo booth. And then I do have a website at bestdayhealing.com. bestdayhealing.com. You can access my virtual online class, which actually starts next Thursday. It's the first one I've done online. I'm really excited about it. What else? Yeah, Q&A. I'm going to show you quickly the picture of Marley. Just because I want you to see what I'm given when I work. I want you just to spend a couple minutes. I think we can do this. If you want to give it a whirl, play with it, write down some things. And in the Q&A, you want to ask for validations. The owner of Marley is actually in class with us. So I'm going to switch the screens if I can do it. I'm not very tech savvy. So hang on. So here is Marley, female, age 2 years old. And if I were doing a session, then we would go through the process that we were discussing, which is you would get yourself centered and grounded if you're closing your eyes in a meditative fashion. And then as if you were locating, broadcasting your frequency to her, looking for her frequency, her unique telecast, broadcast personality. And I like to go to the heart. So you're sending love. I mean, we have a heart-to-heart connection here. And go to Marley's heart and ask her, introduce yourself, and ask her permission if she'd be willing to share with you today. And then you can do as we discussed. You can ask her, hey, what do you want to talk about today? What's going on in your world? Now, if the animal's not looking directly at you in the photograph, I always ask them if I can look through their eyes. What are you looking at? Who do you see when you look through your eyes? What are you feeling? What do you love? What do you like? There's really infinite possibilities here for communicating with Miss Marley. We could ask her about her past. We could ask her about her dreams, her job, her person, what they're dealing with. Where do they live? What does it look like? Are you going on vacation? Where do you like to go? In the unified field of infinite possibilities, past, present, and future, all that information is accessible to us when we train ourselves and develop our skills to connect with the world of unspoken language. And I'm going to take the picture back now. So that kind of wraps up our session here. And we can, in Q&A, you can spend the Q&A talking about it. Here comes Sandra. Good. Yay!
Yay! It's working.
Yay! I think we're at Q&A, and I didn't know how to manage it.
Someone would come online and then be on screen with you, but no one's actually got back to me. But I love what you did there. I don't know. I did I followed the instructions, and I don't know about everyone else, but I was feeling like a lot of pain in the heart. And then I kept seeing like a bed with a white duvet. And then I kind of felt a sense of loss, like someone maybe passed away or left. And it felt like a pet. But I don't know. Who did you say the pet belonged to?
So
yeah,
the person, if she's still here, Marsha.
Okay, yeah, she was in here.
Lorenz.
Okay, let's see. Someone said another. What was it? I feel sadness in her eyes. My ears hurt, and I also have a heavy heart. That was Jenny. Yeah. Oh, okay. So those were the 2 comments that came across. Marsha, are you still there? Can you give us some feedback? Were we right? Anyone else? Do you have any other thoughts or feelings that you got through the no?
Oh, don't be scared.
The ears are correct. Oh, Marsha, so yeah. Who said the ears? Let's see. Oh, Jenny did. Well done, Jenny. So yeah, you've got your abilities in tune. Someone has left, Marley. Okay. Yeah, so Jenny got it right. Don't know about a death, says Marsha. Lisa, what did you get?
I've talked to Marley before.
Yeah.
Marley and I had quite a conversation a couple of weeks ago, so I know Marley.
Yeah.
So I don't want to.
Yeah, bring out.
I don't necessarily give it all away.
Right. So we won't say anything else. What were you saying?
Oh, I was going to say it was also just to show you kind of how I work and what's possible. You can always email me if you want to share your what you wrote down or something. I'm more than happy to respond. But that was a lot of it, just to kind of give you an idea or a taste for it.
Sounds great. Anyone else? Do you have any questions before we've got another 5 minutes or so we can go into? Yeah, no, Jenny's just saying, I'm sorry to hear her ears hurt. How do you let it go, Lisa, if you feel you can't help? That's a good question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. That's a good question. So first of all, I actually just started really working with this again recently, because I started to collect everything I was getting from the animals and started to feel tired and kind of like run down a little bit. And it's really important to clear your energy, however method you do that. If it's nature, if it's saging yourself, if it's mental release, however that goes, because you have to let it go. And you can also use the technique of, I'm going to let you show me what I feel, and then I just want it to go away. Like, like you're just going to let it go. You do have to do that. You have to do that.
Yeah. Anyone else? So Marsha says, smart is correct. My daughter calls her Beba, so right on, Joe. And anyone else? How can you talk to dogs who have passed? That's Lillian.
Hi, Lillian. I love this. So if you recall, I said, Albert Einstein, you can't kill energy. Life is not the beginning. Death is not the end. So the connection to connect to spirit, to connect to your animals in spirit, is the same as it is with the ones on earth. The only difference is that our animals in spirit are now on a higher vibration. They don't have a body anymore. That's all that's different. They don't have their physical body, but their whole everything is intact, and they are in spirit with our other loved ones in spirit. To connect with them, you can practice with a photograph of the past animal. and you would connect in the very same way. When your vibration gets to the vibration of love, it's a very high vibration. And that's how you connect with spirit as well. And believe me when I tell you, I came into evidential mediumship on the backside. I did not intend to do it. But when I started talking to animals, sometimes I would be working with a photo I didn't even know they had passed. And then that's how clear they can communicate. So it's not really any different at all. You can also do it without a photograph. You know, again, you're looking for you're lifting the vibration, you're in love, you're up there in that high flying place, and you're connecting just exactly how we talked about with the photograph and the animal on the earth.
Yeah. Okay, so it says, well, Joe's just talking about having 2 litters, but I'm not sure. I can't see any other questions in there. Yeah, I definitely would love to have a session with my dog at some point. He passed away about 5-6 years ago now, and like we had an amazing bond. And it's like it always feels like they're there. It's like you've got them, you carry them with you your whole life, don't you? And it's like it's those memories and just that feeling of love that they gave you and you gave them. So yeah, that energy does feel like it's there. And I'll be calling you for a session at some point. Yeah, so no, that sounds good. All right, well, if no one has any other questions, I think we'll finish the session now. If you've got any questions about courses, Lisa, you've got one coming up. Is it in November and then another one in December?
It starts next week. It's a 4-week, it's 4 sessions, but you can take them individually and it will go through, I believe, the 3rd week of December, but definitely running again next year. This is the first online
so yeah,
series.
Feel free to go to Lisa's booth, click on the button that's there so she can get your details, and also to show an interest in the courses. Thanks very much, Lisa. Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks. All right. Speak soon.